Some thoughts on life, nature, philosophy, yoga, religion, atheism, Buddhism, non-duality, art, music, and wellness. Mostly positive looks at things that will hopefully give you a moment to pause and a moment to take a breath. Today I'm going to read a few words from Ram Dass from his book, Words of Wisdom. And Words of Wisdom is kind of a compilation of a whole bunch of things that he's written and said throughout the years. If you don't know who Ram Dass is, his born name was Richard Alpert. He was a Harvard professor around the time of Timothy Leary in the 60s and into the 70s. He went to India, found a guru, came back, and talked a lot about his experience there and various things that happened to him. And he was one of the great teachers, I think, of the time period. I think he passed around 2016, I believe, somewhere around there. But had a lot of really interesting things to say in a really kind of honest way, in a fun way. And there's some great talks out there you can check out with Ram Dass online. There's a podcast that has many, many talks from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So highly recommend any of those. This book is broken up into chapters, and then there's kind of subheadings within the chapters. And the first chapter is called Silence as the Doorway. And this is another one of those books that's great for just, you could just pop it open and pull out a paragraph or a sentence and just sit with it. But I've actually gone through chapter 1 here in Silence as a Doorway and picked a few of these. And the first subheading under Silence as a Doorway, actually the second one, is how you get trapped in your mind. The first one I'm going to read says, many people look back with horror on all their past experiences and say, well, finally, it's getting good. That's because they haven't yet stood back far enough to see how exquisitely it all unfolds. Every confusing, backtracking doubt, every fear, horrible experience, unfortunate event, pitiful circumstance, seemingly frivolous act, or sinful breakdown of discipline, everyone was just a step along the path. But to see the path, you have to be very quiet and stop thinking, because every time you think about how the path is, you create something new with that thought. Even the concept of a path. You're in the moment now. This moment is the path. The next section is called Inner Silence. And this one says, listening is an art that comes from a quiet mind and an open heart. Listening uses all your senses, and it is a very subtle skill, not only with the ears, but with your whole being. Your being becomes the instrument of listening. Your sensing mechanism in life is not only your ears, eyes, skin sensitivity, and analytic mind, but also something deeper in you, an intuitive quality of knowing. With all of your being, you become an antenna to the nature of another person. Then, for the relationship to remain a part of the living spirit, one of the best ingredients to put into the stew is truth. Another one from that same section. You and I are using words. We are speaking and listening as a vehicle for us to meet. We are capable of meeting in the intuitive heart-mind, a way of knowing one another that isn't through our immediate analytic intellectual process. But yet, these are word concepts that are spinning out and you're picking them up, taking out your concepts, fitting them with your ideas, and deciding if they work for you. I'm going to have to read that one again and think about it some more before I understand what that says. So that's where I'm at with that one. Another one from that same section says, when you develop the ego structure, this central computer's mechanism for running the game, and he often uses that word, the game, in his talks, and he's just talking about like life, like the whole thing that we're all doing, basically. This central computer's mechanism for running the game. The question arises as to how attached you are or how identified you are with it. In spiritual evolution, you don't destroy the ego. You merely shift from identifying with it to using it as a functional unit. You still need it to function so that when I'm talking to you, I realize that there's a you and a me. And this last one I'm going to read from this section says, it's interesting that as long as you identify with your personality, the things that get you uptight are your enemies. The minute you identify with your awareness, then the things that you get uptight show you where your awareness still has sticky fingers. Because your mind deals with so much polarity, you feel that if you're happy, that means you can't be sad, so you push away what makes you sad. But if you're going to be free, there's nothing you can turn away from or turn off. If you live fully in this moment, does this moment include that baby taking its last breath from starvation? Yes. So are you sad? Yes. Does it include the baby taking its first breath as it comes out of its mother's womb and the joy of the beginning? Yes. So you're happy. If you are embodying the fullness of the moment, all of these are your voices. If you were to become free, there is nothing you can push away.